Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Joe McCarter. RTC is a privately owned telephone company with an impressive record of public service and involvement in community affairs. Two-part question. Does that make it unique in the phone industry? And 2, do you expect that to continue?
Two parts, being privately held, and what was the second?
Continued community involvement.
Yeah, I think somewhat unique, not entirely unique, certainly. A lot of phone companies, technology, telcos, similar to RTC around the state. We are one of the larger, independently owned, privately owned. I absolutely think it will continue. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. I'm committed to this community. I took this position to get myself more squarely into the community, and certainly if I felt that RTC couldn't continue on its current commitment or current path of community commitment and leadership really in the industry, I wouldn't have taken this position.
How many employees does RTC have?
35.
Do you expect that to go up or down in the future?
No real expectations. I think we'll have some shifts, not in people, but in what we do. We're changing right now. We're kind of in a transition. It's one thing to begin to offer additional services as we have over the past several years with the cable TV and the internet. It's another thing to build your organization in order to support and service those areas. It's unique, it's different. This has been a phone company for well over 100 years and an internet and cable company for 10-ish years. So, you know, I see more of a shift in roles as we move forward. I think probably the numbers, you know, feels about right. It really depends. Obviously, business has a lot to do with that.
What was RTC looking for in a new executive?
Well, I'll speak from my perspective. You'd have to ask the board for certain, but I think, you know, when I put my name in the hat, so to speak, for the position, I told Mandy at the time that, you know, if they were looking for somebody with a strong telco background, strong phone experience, that had grown up in that industry, then I wouldn't get much consideration because obviously that wasn't me. If they're looking for someone that came out of the IP, the technology business, that's been in that industry, and secondarily, if they were looking for somebody with some local ties, obviously that would play to my favor. But I think in the end, as I read the job description, went through the interview process, I think the technology aspect was very important to them. I think they understood the evolving industry. Obviously they do. But I think they felt like it was critical to get someone in here that didn't necessarily come just from the phone background, that might have, you know, blinders may be a strong word, but, you know, came from more of the IP background.
How would you describe your management style?
I think that's a difficult question, to be honest. I get asked that a lot, but I always think it's better to ask the people you manage what your style is. You know, I can tell you one thing, but the reality may be something different. You know, and my wife will tell you, my patience level is not super high, but I try to treat everyone as I'd like to be treated. Everyone has strengths and everyone has weaknesses, and I like to make sure we leverage folks' strengths and not necessarily expose their weaknesses. So I treat everyone as I would like to be treated, and you know, hopefully know that expectations are set. You know, we like to meet those expectations, but I think it's a pretty fair management style.
How many customers does Rochester provide with traditional telephone service?
Telephone?
Correct.
I think telephone, and the questions are going to get harder, I can tell. I believe telephone is around 4,500.
Peak times, is there a peak time for phone calls? And how might that compare to a peak time for emails? If there's a peak time for emails.
Typically, and this is not the RTC position, but I know from my previous experiences, email typically peaks right before dinner and right before most folks' bedtime. That's the personal email, obviously, that drives the volume. Business is not that way, but that's not where your volume comes from.